There's only one person who's going to stop you from succeeding in your life, and that's you. You're the person who gets to decide behind the scenes what you're going to do. You get to wake up in the morning and get to work, or just let another day pass. You get to be the one who actually gets to read the books, learn whatever you're going to learn, and do work that's so good it can't be ignored. This is what I love about life. This is what I love about the internet. In fact, I am completely confident that in today's world, yes, there's lots of ups and downs. There's lots of distractions. At your fingertips, you can literally distract yourself for countless hours, but also at your fingertips, you can gain the wisdom of the world, and you can also impact the world if you choose to. It's your choice what you do with your 24 hours. No one can stop you but you. And in this video, I'm going to share with you one rule that I learned from Dan Sullivan that has changed the game. It's a game-changing rule. It has so many packed truths within this one statement that if you can start to apply it in your life, you will immediately skyrocket in your progress. I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy, author of Be Your Future Self Now. Down below, you can click the link, go to futureself.com and get additional free resources that will teach you this science. Also, please like this video, please subscribe so that this video can reach more people. Let's jump into this single rule that I learned from the legend, Dan Sullivan. So Dan Sullivan's rule is called the 80% rule. And according to Dan, 80% gets results while 100% is still thinking about it. If you're trying to be a perfectionist, if you're trying to get your blog post or your, whatever it is, your project, your paper, anything you're trying to do, if you're trying to get it to 100%, you're going to be there doing it forever. And one reason for that is because right now your current self is incredibly limited, whereas your future self, even in a day or a week from now, is going to have way more information and better information. And so you're always learning, always adapting. And so if you're always waiting, you're never going to have it done. 80% gets results. 80% is better than 100% because 80% of something at least is out there having an impact. It's actually being used by people. It's also something that can provide you feedback. 80% is better than 100% because if you get good at 80%, you become prolific, not perfect, then you can start outputting. You can actually start getting things done and also getting feedback from the world. If you're never getting feedback from the world on your work, then you're just in your head. You're afraid. You're actually a coward. And we can all get into this perfectionistic trap. Actually, while I was writing the book, Who Not How with Dan, we were talking about Dan's evolution as a person and as a coach. Dan has been coaching highly successful entrepreneurs for nearly 50 years. And he talked about how in the past, he used to kind of go into the cave mode. This is often how we think about creativity, is where you go into the cave, you perfect the idea, and then eventually you put the idea out into the audience. And he said that in the past, he would spend a long time crafting his ideas. And then he would be it took a lot more courage, I guess you could say, to present the idea to the audience, but he was also far less willing to receive feedback from the audience on his ideas. This is kind of a Lone Ranger mentality. It's also far less psychologically flexible. Whereas now he sees that initially his job is to create the initial format of the idea, which is a lot faster, get it to 80%, I guess you could say, and then present it to the audience. And then the audience gives him feedback, which is a massive aspect of the creation process. And so he's far more flexible. He puts the ideas out there faster. He's way more curious about how they react and respond to that. And he sees a collaboration as part of the creative process. So his ideas get feedback much faster. They transform much faster. And his thinking transforms much faster. If you're too afraid to get feedback on your work or too afraid to put it out into the world, then you're not going to transform your thinking fast enough. And you're too psychologically rigid. You're too afraid of failure. This is basically the essence of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. If you have a massive growth mindset, then you know that your future self is fundamentally bigger, more powerful, has better perspectives than your current self. You also know that your current self is very temporary and fleeting. In fact, that is what Dr. Daniel Gilbert said, the Harvard psychologist, in his TED Talk, The Psychology of Your Future Self. He said your present self is as present and fleeting as the present moment. This also reflects to your past self, that you are no longer your past self. You're not the person you were a week ago. You're not the same person you were 2 years ago or 5 years ago. You have different experiences, different perspectives. We're always slowly and steadily transforming. This is another reason why the 80% rule is so powerful, is that you're always outgrowing your past self. And so that's okay. It's okay to put work out there that you know you're going to outgrow. It's okay to put work out there that your future self may actually fundamentally disagree with. I've put out multiple books. I've put out hundreds of blog posts, at this point now, hundreds of videos. And some of the stuff that I said a year ago, my current self would disagree with my past self. There's a great quote from Alain de Botton. He said, if you're not embarrassed by who you were a year ago, you didn't learn enough. And so it's okay to be embarrassed to some degree by your past work, because that shows you're learning and growing. But that doesn't mean your past work is bad. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. It's actually the past work you did that evolved your thinking. Those who are constantly learning and putting out their work, they're doing what Seth Godin would call shipping. Shipping is when your work collides with the outside world and there's an opportunity for feedback. There's also an opportunity for transformation and connection. And so the 80% rule is beautiful. It's beautiful to not need to have everything perfect, but you just get the work out there to practice. Better prolific than perfect. Practicing in public, as they would say. That's what Chris Rock does. Chris Rock, the famous comedian, he puts together his jokes and he practices them literally on stage to see how they're doing. Practicing in public is how you get better. It's deliberate practice at its finest. It's what Joshua Waitzkin would call investment in loss. Investment in loss is where you're practicing at the level of your future self and you're losing to win. It's okay to lose. I remember when I was first blogging and I put out 50 blog posts and most of those blog posts weren't good. Even this YouTube channel fundamentally is an investment in loss. I don't think I've really gotten that great at YouTube, to be honest with you, but I know my future self is going to be different. I know that my current self is as temporary and fleeting as the present moment. I know that the more I apply the 80% rule, the more I actually get work done, the more I have a deadline, the more I'm putting work out there, it forces me to learn. It forces me to get better. It forces me to get feedback. It forces me to be honest. If you're forcing yourself to get to 100%, you're being dishonest with yourself. You don't actually want feedback. You don't want to get done. You're actually delaying the inevitable. You're procrastinating the day when you have to find out if what you're doing has been a waste of time. If you get much better at actually putting your thinking out there, putting your work out there, actually shipping, whatever that means to you, actually doing something, being comfortable, being done over perfect, then your work is out there and you can actually get feedback. You can actually critically assess your work once it's live. It's really interesting. I remember when I would publish blog posts, and then I could critically assess it because then I was starting to get feedback on it. If it's just in your head, you can't really critically assess it. You have to get feedback. You have to be open to learning and also open to failure. Investment in loss is just a beautiful concept. And so you don't have to have it all figured out right now. Your current self is temporary. Your future self tomorrow, next week, next month, next year will have a much different perspective, but also a much different position. Even myself, me filming in this room, I just barely bought this house recently, and this is not necessarily the ideal setting for filming videos, but I'm fine with 80%. I know that next week, maybe I'll upgrade my environment a little bit, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't film this video now, because if I film this video now, at least it'll impact somebody. Obviously, if you're watching this video, it's interfacing with the world. Shipping means your work is colliding with the world. And if you're not shipping, you're not thinking. If you're not shipping, you're not actually putting your thinking to the test and having the courage to try, to fail, to learn, to move. Here's what I love. 80% to your current self is beyond anything your former self could ever do. Even this video right here, this is an 80% video. Very unpolished, very unrefined, yet it's 100% better than anything my past self could ever do. And it's only 80% to my current self. The same is true of my future self. 80% to my future self is beyond my best work because my future self has much better perspectives. They're far more clear. They've got better strategy. My future self knows way more what they're doing. And so 80% to my future self is beyond the skills, the capability, the comprehension, the courage, the commitment of my current self. My current self can't even fathom what 80% to my future self is. And so the question is, do you prefer progress? Do you prefer evolution and adaptability? Or do you just want to sit in your cave and shield yourself from the world? Investment in loss hurts. So does deliberate practice. Putting yourself out there, learning, failing, being really critically honest with yourself, actually listening to feedback. This is, by the way, what professional athletes do. One of the biggest aspects of deliberate practice is reviewing your work, studying it and analyzing it. If you think about Tom Brady or professional athletes, they go back and they watch their tape. This may be the hardest thing for any performer to do, is to go back and actually watch your own performance and critically assess it and take notes and maybe get feedback from a master coach about where you could be better. Actually deliberate practice. Review your own work, watch your tape, watch your film. You can't do that if you're not performing. You can't do that if you're not putting out your work. So this is an invitation to commit to your future self such that you're willing to fail to the level of your future self. It's better to fail at the level of your future self than succeed at the level of your current self. It's better to fail at the level of your future self while attempting to be your future self now, rather than hiding from failure. Fixed mindset people fear failure at all costs, whereas future minded growth mindset people, in the words of Brene Brown, they're trying to get it right rather than trying to be right. I would say Dan Sullivan in the past, he was trying more to be right, whereas now he's trying to get it right. And trying to get it right means you're constantly learning, constantly getting better. You know that your current thinking is very limited and that it will evolve with conversations, evolve with feedback, evolve with creativity, evolve with collaboration. You're not done collaborating. You're not done evolving. So are you trying to be right, or are you trying to get it right? If you're constantly transforming your thinking, constantly doing work, you're going to grow so fast. It's going to be accelerated progress, but also then every month, every year, you'll look back and be blown away at how transformed your current work is compared to your former self's work. You'll constantly be outgrowing your former self as you're striving to be your future self. The 80% rule is just a beautiful rule of creativity, a beautiful rule that liberates you from being a perfectionist, a beautiful rule that allows you to be open to feedback, thinking, transforming your thinking, becoming massively psychologically flexible. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you want more of the Future Self Science. And obviously down below, go to futureself.com and get some of the amazing resources. Have a brilliant day and start applying the 80% rule. See ya.